These are 10 of the things we get asked the most about living in Venice, Florida.
And we're getting started right now. So one of the things we probably get asked the most is floods. Flood insurance, flood zones, everything involving floods, hurricanes, tropical storms, all the rain we get in the summer months. So what would you say is the main things that people need to know?
I would say if you're purchasing a home here in Venice, just make sure it's not on a flood zone or that it's on an X flood zone. That means that it's out of the flood zone. It doesn't mean that, it couldn't, like something could happen, because at the end of the day, we are in Florida. But it means that if you're financing, your lender will not require flood insurance.
Some people do still opt to buy flood insurance though, just for peace of mind.
Yes, that's another question too that people ask, how much would flood insurance cost me? For a 3-bed, 2-bath, I would say around just $1,000, maybe a couple $1,000s a year. So it comes down to like $100 or like $60 a month. So it's not much for that peace of mind.
And it depends too on, what zone you're in, what the level of the insurance is going to be, if you can even get approved for a loan, all kinds of things like that are going to be factors that you have to consider. But in general, if you're like in a flood zone X, probably going to be about $1,000 a year, maybe a little more, give or take. Depends on the company, the size of the home, the location, all of that. One other thing to consider is before we moved down, I don't know if they might have rebranded a tool that we used online, was called Flood IQ. It shows kind of like for 15-year, if sea level rise, what they're predicting it'll be, kind of where that puts you in 15 years for flood risk. One thing I definitely noticed from those maps is outside of, elevation being a factor, just being closer to the coast, closer to the beaches is going to put you at higher risk if there's storm surge.
And the other one you can use too is FEMA. They have their own flood maps, so you can just enter whatever address, you're interested in, and it'll tell you what flood zone you're on.
And a couple other things to consider is the house itself. Some things with the house could maybe bring your insurance rate down and just make it more protected. A lot of times the lot, they'll elevate right by where they're going to build the house, so that way everything goes down away from the house. There's hurricane shutters, hurricane impact windows, there's certain types of roofs. So all those things are factors that can bring down your risk and your insurance cost.
Another question we get asked a lot is, what's an HOA and how often do I have to pay it?
Right off the bat, I just want to say we have a really in-depth video that we'll link in the description. We're going to give you the short answer here though.
So not all homes are on an HOA, but if you are part of a homeowners association, you do have a monthly fee, and that just really depends on the association. It could be anywhere from $20 a month to $300, $400, $500 a month. It just depends what's included. Also, the payment, it could be a monthly payment, or it could be every 3 months or every year. So that also just depends on what the homeowners association wants to do. But again, you can check that video out, and we go really, really in depth about HOAs.
Yeah, typically I'd say most HOAs are going to be monthly, but there are some exceptions. And like she said, like the fee, if it's higher, you're usually going to get more. Maybe you'll get a pool, tennis courts, things like that. Again, we won't beat a dead horse. Full video in the description, but definitely something to think about. For some people, HOA is a great fit. For some people, not. Again, that video really is going to help you out.
And then with the HOA too, another question that a lot of people have, it's what's a CDD fee and why do I have to pay it and how often do I have to pay it? So a CDD fee is basically think of it like a loan. So the developer is giving you a loan to provide all these amenities. And so every homeowner has 30 years, depending on the contract, to make those payments. Usually it just gets added to your tax bill, and it can be, depending on the area, it can be like a difference of $1,000 to $2,000, maybe a little bit more, and depending on what amenities you have, obviously. So on top of your yearly tax bill, you'll have that CDD fee that you're basically paying back the developer for giving you all those amenities.
And one other thing to point out with CDD fees and HOAs is, us coming from Wisconsin, we were really used to having sidewalks, streetlights, things like that in cities. Sometimes a lot of times in pockets, especially in this Venice area, really all of Florida, you won't get those things unless there is an HOA or a CDD. If you want sidewalks, streetlights, a lot of times that's like the bare minimum, basic, low-level HOA.
Yes, and yeah, between $20 a month and $100 a month will get you sidewalks. Some HOAs will only have it like on one side of the street. Most of the communities do have it on both sides of the street. Sidewalks, lights, and maybe a pool.
Yeah. Next question we get a lot from people is, how long does the whole purchase process take to buy a home?
Yeah, so it really depends on your specific situation. Are you financing? If yes, then 35 to 41 days is the amount of time that it takes for everything to be sorted out. The lender, having all them, filling out the applications, pulling credit, making sure that you should be pre-approved at this, I should say. So 35 to 41 days is once you're pre-approved, then that's how long it will typically take. And in this time, they'll just gather all the information, and the title company will also be gathering information about the home. Is it, free of liens? Is the seller who they really say they are? So if you're financing 30 to 41 days, if you're paying cash, it can take 7 days to close. As little as 7 days. I've heard of title companies that they can do it in 3 days. So paying cash, sellers are always going to look at that as like, okay, this is a quick close, we're good to go. If you are financing with a VA or FHA loan, that typically takes a little longer, just because the VA and FHA loan, sometimes the lenders will take a little bit longer with the appraisal to come back, their inspections, they have their own inspections, and also there are certain things that the seller has to fix before closing. So like, it could take only 35 days, but it could take a lot more than 35 to 41 days.
And linked in the description, if you want to know more in depth the entire process, she actually did a video explaining the whole process of the mortgage and everything like that. Next question we get a lot about Venice, because a lot of people are coming here from outside of Florida, and one thing Florida is known for that most other states don't really have much of, or definitely, and some don't have any, is alligators. So alligators are really, I wouldn't say they're nothing to worry about, but in the grand scope of things, they're really nothing to worry about. You do have to be aware of them, respect them, understand that maybe you shouldn't let your small pets off a leash. Or kids close to a pond. Usually they're going to stick to bodies of the water for the most part. They will walk from one to another pond during mating season, but overall, I mean, I've been within 10 feet of an alligator and it did nothing. I've seen birds swim right past it, do nothing. I'm not saying they never eat birds, but I haven't got to see it yet. Yes. So.
And usually if they hear you coming, they'll just go back in the water. Not to say that they couldn't come and, attack you if they're hungry. So just be mindful and respectful. And yeah, usually it's not a big deal. We've been in Florida for 3 years. We have seen a couple alligators, big ones and small ones, and we're always just respectful of them and, careful of our dog too. We haven't had an issue.
And we've had a lot of people, like friends and family, come stay here with us or just come hang out for a day from out of state. And I know a lot of them are like really worried about gators. And after like the first day, they're just like, oh, that's a gator.
Oh, there goes the gator. Yeah, that's so exciting.
It's exciting, or they just don't care.
Yeah.
So the level of anxiety about it goes to pretty much nothing pretty quick.
Another question we get asked a lot is, what's the weather like?
That depends on the time of year. Winter, generally, people think it's amazing, perfect. I think it's a little cool on some days, but in general, it's pretty good. The lows in the mornings is usually like the coolest time, like 3, 4, 5 a.m., 6 even to some degree. It could get down as low as sometimes, occasionally, like the 30s, but that's pretty rare. I'd say more typically you're looking at 50s, 60s, sometimes 40s would be a lower morning, but typically 50s or 60s, and then the highs in the winter, what would you say, like 70s, 80s, low 80s. You're not going to get to mid 80s very often, but it will happen. And then in the summer months, that's when things change. There's a lot more heat, a lot more humidity. That's the other thing. The winter's not nearly as humid. In the winter month in the summer months, there's a lot more humidity. It's going to be pretty much the same temperature just about every day. It's going to be right around low 90, upper 80.
It's hot.
Yeah, it's going to be, and it's going to feel hot because of the humidity. And then we're going to get a storm just about every day, a quick thunderstorm or a rain shower usually, and that'll last 30 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes. Sometimes it'll look like it shouldn't be raining and the forecast says it isn't, but it is. So things like that. Sometimes the storms will be longer.
Yeah, or one side of the street will be raining, like the other day we were talking with our neighbor and then it started like pouring. So she went in her house, we quickly ran across the street to our house and it wasn't raining by us.
Yeah. And also summer is like your hurricane season all the way up to October, although I feel like it's already died down more. Yeah. Like I'd say it's more like September. but that's your hurricane season is like July to October. And yeah, I mean, there's some bigger storms that go through sometimes that are pretty wicked, scary. I don't know. I think they're kind of fun unless it doesn't, unless it damages the house or gets too scary, then not cool. But I like my thunderstorms. We get some crazy lightning that goes across the sky and just makes this huge web. Like I've never seen it in any other state.
It's beautiful. It's crazy how low it feels. Like it feels like it's on top of you. It's beautiful. I'm scared of thunderstorms and lightning, but it does look beautiful. But I'm still scared about them.
And that's one of the things actually to note is lightning strikes are much more common. People getting struck by it in Florida just because we get so much more of it. I swear there's one time it hit right between our house and the neighbor's house, like right in the lawn, because it was like this really sharp crack from the thunder and a boom almost like at the same time, which if you know how that works, usually if the storm is farther away, you'll see the lightning in the distance and then the boom happens before or after, like quite a while. It's a longer period of time, but this happened like boom, boom. So anyways, that's something else to consider in the summer months. I like the weather that time of year. The mornings, we didn't mention, is going to be 70 at the lowest, I would say, maybe 60. And of course, you're gonna have your days here and there in the winter and the summer where, okay, maybe it is gloomy all day. Maybe it is a little more stormy the whole day. So that's something to keep in mind. But in general, lots of sunshine, or I'd say partly cloudy days is what we get a lot of.
Yes, definitely. Another question I get asked a lot is, how much do I have to pay you to represent me as my agent? So the good news is when you're purchasing a home, you don't have to pay any commission to any realtor. The seller actually pays the commission. So this is not a cost that you will incur for working with me or any other realtor. You will get our expertise and the seller will pay for that. So isn't that amazing?
Yeah, free help, basically.
Yes. Also, with that question comes, what are the closing costs? How much do I have to pay for closing costs? The closing costs will be about 1% to 3% of the purchase price. This depends if you're financing or if you're paying cash. If you're paying cash, I would say closer to 1.5% maybe. If you're financing, anywhere between 1.5 and 3%. It just depends on what fees your lender will have and the application fees and all those things. But typically I would say plan 1 to 3% of the purchase price for closing costs. And that will include like title insurance, applications, mortgage applications for the lender, their application fees, things like that. I do talk about the process in a video that we'll have linked below. I talk about the process of closing and purchasing a new home.
One other question we get a lot about Venice, and we're gonna link you at the end of the video. Make sure you check out a video. It's like about a bunch of the rumors that people have about Venice, some maybe misconceptions or things that people say and you maybe don't give the full scope of what it actually is like here. So make sure you check that video out. But one of those things that we talk about in that video is basically, is Venice only for retirees? There are a lot of retirees here, but there are also a lot of families moving to the area. But if you want to know more about that and a lot of the other rumors, check out the video right here.
If you're looking to buy or sell a home in the Venice, Sarasota area, make sure to call, text, or email me. My information will be in the description box below.
Leave a comment with any other questions you have and we'll get to it in a future video. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, and
Live breezy.